This problem, we've got a division by 0. Doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. We're dividing by 0. And we just don't do that. So I'm going to say this thing is indeterminate. Which means, of course, we don't know what number it represents. We just don't do this. So we don't allow this. It's indeterminate because we cannot determine what number it is. Looks like a lot going on here, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. Look what we have. Right away I see a division. But what do we have? A multiplication. I got a multiplication here, and a subtraction, and a subtraction. Let's just take them one at a time. Work on the top. Multiply first, and then we'll do the subtraction. All right? So here's what we have. Do that one right there. 5 times -1, -5. Then let's do this one. -7 times -4 is positive 28. Now, what do you get on the bottom? 3 minus 5? Well, you have 3, then you lose 5. You're down 2. Now, what about the top? -5 plus 28. You're adding two numbers with opposite signs, so just subtract. They have opposite signs, you're adding. Subtract. 28 minus 5 is 23. Associate the sign of the larger number, the larger absolute value. So it's 28 minus 5 is 23. It's going to be positive 23. So I get 23 over -2. But I like to put the negative on the top. So I'm going to write this as -23 over 2. Now, if you want to write that out in front, perfectly good. Oh, they seem to be getting a little bit bigger now. Well, here's what we have first of all. 4 minus 1 times all this. Now, what have we got in here? Look at the top. 2 times 4 is 8. So I'll get an 8. And then look at this one. Positive 4 times -3 is minus 12. And in the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. And then -1 times 2. -1 times 2, that's 2. Right? It's actually -2, right? Oh, you see what's going on here? Let's just check that. 2 times 1 is the 2. -1 times 2 is -2. Now, I don't really need to do anything else here. What do you see about this one right here? What do you see about that? That's 0. So you're trying to divide by 0, and we don't do this. This right here is a 0. Indeterminate. I don't need to go any further. This number is indeterminate. Even though I get 4 minus 1 times something that's indeterminate, you don't know what number it is. You can't multiply it by 1 and subtract and deal with the 4. You just get indeterminate for the whole thing. Well, there's 4 parts to this one, and all we're doing is just substituting in here. So you've got this expression, -b over 2a. Now, in part A, they're telling us that A is -2 and B is -12. All right, so what do we get here? All right, at -b over 2a, what we're going to get is -b. All right, so it's negative and then b, -12. Okay, it's -b. Be careful. It's negative, b, but b is -12, so I get -12 over 2 times a. But a, right here, a is -2. So let's multiply that by 2, -2. Okay, so what do we get on the top? This whole thing is now equal to, all right, on the top, -12, or the opposite of -12 is positive 12. And in the denominator, 2 times -2 is -4. Positive divided by negative is negative. We're going to get -3 out of this. There's part A. Now, what about part B? We've got A is 3, B is 4. All right, so what do we get here for -b over 2a? Well, -b, so we'll get negative, right? There's that negative sign. Now, what is b? B is 4. Didn't write it too well. There's negative. Here's the negative sign. And then B is 4, so I just put the 4 in there. Now, bottom, 2 times A, which is 3. So 2 times 3, or parentheses if you like, but you're going to get negative 4 over 6. Now this thing happens to reduce, right? 2 will divide each of those. So if I divide the top by 2, I'll get negative 2. Bottom by 2, I'll get 3. All right, so negative 2/3. Now I could have done that back here. Back here, I could have reduced right away. Probably a good idea. 2 into 4 is 2. So if you had done that back here, 2 will go into 2 once, 2 into 4 twice, and then what do you end up with? You end up with negative 2 over 3. Now in part C, A is negative 1, B is 8. So what is negative B over 2A in this case? Well, there's that negative sign. Now what is B? Well, B is just 8, right? That's what we're told. B is just 8, so I'll put the 8 right there. There's the negative, there's the 8. Over 2 times A, but A is negative 1, right? So A is negative 1, so put that there. Now, the top is already done. That's going to be a negative 8 over the bottom. 2 times negative 1, right, in the bottom. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And negative divided by negative is positive. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now in D, it looks like we got a decimal here, but we can deal with that. What is negative B over 2A? Well, here's the negative. Now what is B? B is just 12. Now what is A? 2 times A is negative, right? Negative 0.1. Now I'm going to put the negative on the top, so it's going to be negative 12 over, now in the bottom it's 2, positive times negative is negative, so I know I'm going to get a negative. 2 times 0.1 is 0.2. Now to deal with this decimal, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this over to the right one place. Now 12 on the top, look at the top here. 12 is really this. It's really 12 point. Right, we just don't write the 0 out of there. So if in the bottom, if I move the decimal one place to the right, I have to do that in the top. So what I'm going to get is negative, move it over 1, becomes 120, over negative 2, right? Now move it over 1, and then negative over negative is positive. 2 into 120 is 60. Now when I say I'm just moving it over, what I'm really doing is multiplying by, this is one spot, so to the right, I'm multiplying by 10. If I multiply the bottom by 10, 0.2 times 10 is 2, and then multiply the top by 10, well, 10 over 10 is 1, 120 times 10, 12 times 10 is 120.